Hello, this is Wmpyr. Here to talk about systems. Okay, and I've said to you guys before that the importance of systems, and if you have a system, that's much better than not having a system, and it'll give you an advantage. And a system is not the same thing as a style. So I'm here to clarify then what the heck is a system? What's the difference? Um, so the first example I want to give you guys with a system when I think about that is none other than world famous martial artist Bruce Lee. Um, when he created Jeet Kune Do, he was like, man, everyone's gonna call this a style. He's like, he went against styles. He was saying like styles cause separation and people start like dividing amongst each other when he was more like, no, we're all human and the style is not as important as the person. So he was going against styles, yet then at the end of the day he made a new style. So he was like, no, that's what people are gonna say, and he was really disappointed in that, and he was like, that's not what this is though. And I agree with him. I feel like what he did was Jeet Kune Do is not a style. It is a system. Um, I think today maybe he would have called it. Yeah, he would have said it's a system. It's not a style, and he would have made that separation. But back in the day, I think the idea of a system was just too new. No one really understood the difference. So he was just like, it's another style, and that was his dilemma. But yeah, no, to me is he made a system. Now today in the martial arts world, there are other systems. It's not just Jeet Kune Do. For example, the Russian martial art of Sistema is a system. It's not a style. Um, and I want to go into more detail once again of what's the difference between a style and a system, right? Because that is what I've been trying to do for you guys. Is I've been trying to teach you guys a system. But anyway, so another example, okay, another example, and this one was groundbreaking for me. This was huge. Back in the day, I was trying to learn grappling. Wasn't good at it, and I was like, man, I need to learn grappling because, I like Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis. I like Muay Thai kickboxing, but this grappling thing, I don't know it. And if I get taken to the ground, it's going to be game over for me. So I was like, I need to learn this stuff. Okay. So as I was trying to learn it, I was having trouble. And, I would have these gym wars. So in class, I would spar against my classmates. And these are, guys with similar experience as me, about similar size as me. So, it shouldn't have been, how do you call it, where I'm getting destroyed or whatever. But it was just brutal sparring matches, and I was like, man, is this what it's like to learn this style? There's got to be something. Something is not clicking for me because I'm just going head to head against these guys, and it is rough. So, um, I was looking for something to help me, and then I came across video series made by Professor Mario Sperry. So Mario Sperry was a professional fighter. He represented Carlson Gracie team. If I'm not mistaken, he was the team captain, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, he's a legend in MMA, one of the legendary MMA fighters. So his video series was so amazing, amazing. It changed my game totally. It clicked for me, and all of a sudden, I was doing, twice as good as. But all of a sudden, I have this advantage, and I'm going, wow! All because it just clicked in the brain. Okay, so what it was he was teaching you a system. So in a review, I remember watching a review for his video series, and the person said that the Mario Sperry Vale Tudo instructional tapes is a home run, a home frickin' run. And I was like, yep, they are. They absolutely are. But then it said this. It said that it basically said that he is teaching you a system. And that's the difference. And I didn't, I was kind of like, what does that mean? That he's teaching? And yeah, he is. He is teaching. What's the difference here? The system. So it's like, think about that. Think about that, okay? He's teaching you, obviously, he's Carlson Gracie student. He's teaching you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? He's teaching you Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, essentially. Okay, so he's teaching you BJJ. How is it different from any other BJJ? They all teach you the same thing. They teach you the positions. They teach you, transitions. They teach you submissions. What's the difference here? Well, what he was teaching you was put together, ready to go for you to fight. For you to fight. So it was step by step, do exactly this. It was almost like he's in your corner and he's telling you, do this, and that's how you're going to fight. Okay. And when you learn BJJ, any other BJJ school, they're teaching you, like I said, positions. They're teaching you everything, and you have to still put it together. What are you putting together? A system. So it's lacking a system. You're putting things together for you. Okay. So some guys in your class, there might be this purple belt that he's awesome with knee on the belly. There might be this brown belt over here that is freaking just the killer from top side, and this other guy, I don't know how, but he just takes your back every single time. So there's different styles, different ways, different things happening, right? So all those guys are starting to, or they already figured out a system for themselves. And that's what you do with any martial arts style that you learn. And that is what my teacher's teacher, who was Professor Remy Presas, that's what he said. He said, you got to make the style work for you. You have to make it fit you. Okay. So he's going to teach you, like my teacher's teacher taught Arnis. Okay. And then from there, you make it fit you. And the way that he made it fit him was he combined it with karate and he combined it with small circle jiu-jitsu. That's him. Okay. For me, it's been a bunch of different other styles. Okay. And then for somebody else, it's going to be different. So and it's not just about combining it with other styles. It's about, once again, within Filipino martial arts, maybe you want to specialize with double sticks. This guy over here is amazing with single stick. I like the knife. This guy over here, my instructor, he liked the machete. So everybody's different, and everybody makes it fit differently for themselves. But we all learned Arnis. Okay, so just like that. So Mario Sperry, yes, he was teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he was teaching a system. And for example, the very first thing that he taught, right? It's been a long time since I've seen the tapes, but the very first thing that he taught was, in fighting, old school Jiu-Jitsu, old school BJJ, is you throw the front kick. You throw this front kick, your arms are out like this, kind of like your Frankenstein, and you're keeping the distance. And then you throw that kick, you get them to back up, and when they start backing up, then you shoot in. right? And then now you're in a clinch, and then from there you could take them down, and they're in your world. So that's what they teach, right? And this is where, for example, in this videotape series, he says, that's old school. We don't do that anymore. He says, we punch your way in. So no more of this kicking thing. He says, you punch your way into the clinch. And then you take the guy down, and then they're in your world. So he says that. Okay. So he's teaching you exactly what to do. Okay. Most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructional tapes that I've seen, they don't teach you from, okay, let's start with number one, which is how do we get the takedown? Okay, so then do the stance, the typical Jiu-Jitsu stance, and then do the kick. A lot of them don't teach that, but let's say they did, right? Is it that big of a difference between what they're teaching and what Mario Sperry is teaching? And the answer to me is yes, because if you watch UFC 5, there is that fight, the super fight between Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock. And in that fight, a lot of people, even though I believe it was declared a time limit draw, if I'm not mistaken, that it went to full time limit and then it's a draw, a lot of people feel like Ken Shamrock won that fight. Why? Honestly, because of one punch. And that one punch was Royce Gracie did the same kick that he always does. He does that kick to create that distance. Most people back up, and then he comes in to take you down. Well, Ken Shamrock didn't back down. He took the kick, and he returned a punch. And that punch landed on Royce's eye, and it swelled up. And so you could see clear damage being done to Royce. Everyone could see it. So then at the end, who won the fight? And that's why a lot of people feel like Ken Shamrock won that fight because of that. And then it just makes sense to me that Mario Sperry and his team, Carlson Gracie team, would see that fight and they would go, no more, no more. We're not going to do it like that anymore. We're going to punch our way in. So they evolved it. Okay, they evolved it. Still not convinced. You may still not be convinced. So the next thing I want to tell you guys is I remember, a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tapes would teach you how to do an armbar from the guard. The guard is you're on the bottom, and they teach you how to do an armbar. Okay, a lot of schools to this day teach that. Okay, and Mario Sperry in that instructional tapes he said nobody can get an armbar that way. If you do, it's because the other guy made a huge mistake, is worthless, or the guy is just like dead like a zombie. He says, impossible. He said, I will sign my name on a dotted line to tell you that it's impossible. That's basically what he said. And he didn't teach it like that, okay? And to me, that was brilliant. That was brilliant, okay? Why? Because what he was talking about is most schools, they're teaching you how to do the armbar from the guard. And back in the old days, you might go up against a wrestler who's not familiar with submissions and you could armbar the guy, maybe. If he has good fighting instincts and you feel something coming up, then he might just rip out, right? He just might muscle out of it. But if you're slick, you might be able to catch him. But that relies on that person's ignorance, right? So Mario Sperry was saying that, hey man, no more. Everybody knows this now, so no more. And, today even more so. People are more familiar with this kind of thing. So it makes sense what he's saying, okay, that people are not going to just leave their arm hanging out for you to armbar them. And a good example of this is if you watch from Pride Fighting Championships, one of my favorite MMA matches of all time, and it's one of my favorites because of the lesson you learn here. The lesson here is pretty much the same idea. and it's with Ensign Inoue versus Igor Vovchanchin. Vovchanchin, one of the best MMA fighters at the time. So at that time, he was considered like number one or number two. Okay. And Ensign, super brave, fought this guy, and on the ground, he had the guard position, and he was going for arm bars. And look, Ensign had armbarred Royce Alger, who was one of the top wrestlers of the era to come into MMA. And he did it from the guard, so same bottom position. And then he armbarred Randy Couture. I think that came after. Yeah, he armbarred Randy Couture afterwards. But once again, from the guard. So he armbarred both wrestlers. And here he is again, from the guard position trying to get an armbar. But by this time, can't get it. Okay. Royce Alger, Randy Couture is just two guys I would hate to mess with. And those two guys got armbarred by Ensign. Igor, it just wasn't happening. Every time Ensign would set it up and start going for that armbar and start walking the legs up high to get the armbar, Igor he wouldn't let it happen. Okay. He was knowledgeable enough. He was strong enough. He was explosive, powerful enough to just not let it happen. So it just makes sense to me what Mario Sperry was saying right there is, to rely on the opponent just being completely, like in Randy Couture's case, I feel like he got a little confused where he was like, okay, I'll punch him right now, and I got armbarred. Royce Alger wasn't confused. I think Royce Alger, it was more, I don't want to say ignorant, but he was like, wrestlers rule. Wrestlers, I don't need to study your stuff. You need to study my stuff. He had that attitude. And for sure he's ferocious. For sure he's scary. But, he did get armbarred. So that's what happened there. Okay. So Igor, on the other hand, had studied some Sambo to, understand ground fighting. And in case he was in that position that he wouldn't just get submitted. So he studied. He wasn't really did submission or studied Sambo that he was going to be submitting people with submissions, although he does have a few submission victories, if I'm not mistaken. But it was more so so he doesn't get submitted by a grappling expert. And anyway, my point is Mario Sperry saying, hey, no one's going to get armbarred that way. I think he's been right. It's very difficult, especially now in recent times. It's harder and more rare to see an armbar victory, win by armbar. So I think Mario Sperry had a very, very good point. So he was teaching a system, how to use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a fight. So it kind of like puts it already together in a ready-to-use format. Okay, so then you go, well, wait a minute. Isn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu already like that? And the answer is no. The answer is no, it's not. It's still like this massive textbook kind of thing. And then from there, you're learning stuff. And then it's up to you to put it together and create a system. So Mario Sperry made a system, and it was amazing. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do for you guys with Filipino martial arts. Is I'm trying to present to you guys a system that's ready to use. So it's not that I'm going against the textbook. I'm not going against Filipino martial arts. I'm saying that's wonderful, but now let's get stuff from there and put it into a system. And just because it's not in my system doesn't make it wrong. It's just this is how I like to put it together. This is how I like to use it. Somebody else may have a different system. Okay. But I hope that makes sense. I hope that you could do this with any style out there, but you create a system. And you're supposed, I believe you're supposed to, just like Professor Remy Presa said, make it your own, which means make a system, in my opinion. So that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.